kind of want to transition a little bit here. We were kind of talking about playoff implications a little bit, but there's a lot. This NFL season feels very open. Like we still got question marks a little bit about Detroit. Kansas City's really not blowing anybody out. They're kind of close in every game. Um, Philly's in there. Like, who are your top contenders? Who do you think is getting a little overrated? Like, where do you kind of stand on like the top of the playoff picture right now?
Okay, so I like the points that you made, and especially with Detroit, they've suffered. I saw online they have like 11 guys on the defense that are on IR right now, and
Yeah.
that's just like ridiculous. Like they're signing Jamal Adams to play linebacker. I saw he was taking snaps in the line with the linebackers on the Lions, and so I don't know if I'm necessarily as hot on them, but I will say their offense is. I'd I'd probably want to take their offense as the number one off, especially if you're playing through Detroit. If you have to go into Ford Field and try and knock them off their game, I don't really see anybody stopping them. I think you can slow them down, but the Eagles have looked untouchable the last few weeks, especially playing some of the better talent, Commanders, Rams, and then the Ravens this past week. I think they're
I gotta give him credit there, man.
yeah.
I'm gonna let you keep going, but like the Eagles, like they've proven me wrong, and I will like totally own it.
hmm
I'm here. It's crazy. I mean, they look unstoppable right now.
Yeah. Especially on defense too. They got a lot of young guys that are balling out. Carter looks like the second coming of Aaron Donald almost, and it's like holy
Well,
moly.
now he's getting the double teams that Aaron Donald did,
Yeah, yeah.
and if you're not doubling him, he's getting through. So it's
Mhm.
the same, like
And they got some other
similar.
other guys on the line too that are producing. Bond is having a like an all pro year, and then they got really good secondary with young guys, which I think is kind of the key to keeping the
And I
speed.
think that's the impressive part of Philly is I think my the reason I was really skeptical was not the offense. Like
hmm
I don't really like Hurts, but I knew he'd be fine. Like he's still a solid NFL quarterback. He's just kind of middle of the pack in my opinion.
hmm
But like with Saquon and the receivers, like that was gonna work. The issue was for me was the young secondary.
hmm
They have two starting corners right now that are rookies.
Yeah,
Like that's and they're playing well.
yeah.
That we've never seen that work
Mm-mm.
ever.
No,
Um,
they've been holding
and
their
they're
own.
locking down. They're locking down.
Yeah.
I mean, and maybe the front seven deserves more credit, whatever the case may be. But I mean, it's impressive. It doesn't matter how like it's working, and that was kind of the defense's weakness last year was the secondary. They just got eaten alive, and they're here now.
Yeah,
But keep going.
Vic Fangio has been. I think he's been their best acquisition in the offseason. Outside of, I mean, obviously Saquon's been pretty darn good. I would say
Yeah,
him and Vic have been kind of the top two guys that they brought in just because. I mean, Vic was there with Miami guys last year, and they kind of put up a stinker with that defense with how much talent they had last year. Now they had some injuries going on, but they look
it
like
just wasn't enough talent. It
yeah,
just yeah.
he's got a litany of guys to coach up this year, and he's got a lot of weapons on defense that he can use at his
Yeah.
disposal. Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, I guess the only other team that I really think can put up a punching chance against those two, depending on how everything kind of shakes out, and it's unfortunate because the NFC North is probably the best division in football. They got like three 11 win team, 10 win
Yeah.
team, and a 9 win team. Like holy moly! So I think I think the Packers, Jordan Love. I know a lot of people are kind of mixed on him, but I just think that I think he's got the capabilities, and I think they have like a pretty solid wide receiver core. Their offensive line is year after year always one of the better units in the league, and Josh Jacobs looks like the Josh Jacobs from 2 years ago when he was running for however many.
He
Yeah, like it's just
he looks good right now.
they have a pretty good basis for the team, and I think the defense can get better a little bit maybe. But they still have guys everywhere. McKinney, Alexander, Kenny Clark still running the line. So I like them a lot. I was going to ask you about this. Maybe this is a hot take. In the AFC, I really only see it
I
as
know
a.
what you're gonna say, I think.
I want to say that it's a two-team race. I really do, but
Okay.
I've seen year after year what happens whenever people try and put Mahomes second in that conference, and
Yeah.
I just I I'm maybe not a big believer in the Bills' weapons outside of James Cook because Kincaid has had a pretty rough year. Knox is, there's a reason why Kincaid is starting over Knox. And then they've been missing Coleman for a little bit, and you got like 31-year-old Amari Cooper out there. I don't know if I believe,
He's not doing much either.
yeah, other than throwing the ball back to their best player on the against the Niners, right?
That was wild, yeah.
So I don't know what your opinion on that is, but I realistically think I think the Chiefs are gonna once January rolls around, that's a different team, and I think that they have it in their bag, unfortunately.
I think you've said a lot of things that I agree with. Here's the thing about Detroit. I think Detroit deserves to be not head and shoulders, but they deserve to be the favorite right now. But here's what you got to watch out for. And I can't give credit on this take. I heard it from my favorite analyst, Nick Wright, of course. He don't be missing. But this is very true. This is very true. Thursday night is Packers Lions. Now that's at home for the Lions. It's a great setup. They're the favorites, blah blah blah. We get that. But if they were to lose that game, the Vikings are quietly still right there, only with 2 losses.
Hmm.
If and again, I'm not saying I necessarily predict this, but if the Lions were to lose Thursday night, and it plays out that the Vikings end up winning the division title, and then the Lions are playing outdoors, that I don't know, man. They've got a lot of dome games this year, and
Yeah.
I think that's something to watch out for. I don't think that I'm they're the favorites to win the division. I would still pick them to win the division, but that's a scenario where it changes things in the NFC really fast. Like, I think the Lions are better than Philly,
Uh,
but if they have to go to Philly instead of host Philly,
hmm.
I don't know if I can I don't know
Yeah.
if I can take the Lions in that game at this point, especially with how Philly's playing.
Hmm.
What do you
And
think about that?
I I wholeheartedly agree with that, and I think you and I know. I mean, this past, I guess not this past, a while ago, maybe like the fifth or sixth week of the season when the Lions and Vikings played, they went toe to toe, and
Toe to
like
toe.
it was, I think it was a one score game, and that's Sam Darnold managing their
Lions kicked the game-winning field goal in that game
right. So
to
I
run out the clock. So
I don't think it's, especially with divisional games, it's not as big of a gap as people make it out to seem. I know people kind of dig on Sam Darnold, but I think I know this better than anybody. And the 2018 year when the Rams went to the Super Bowl and they got skunked by the Patriots, there was
yep,
one game when Jared Goff played in the cold against the Chicago Bears on, I think it was Sunday Night Football, and the defensive coordinator named Vic Fangio put Jared Goff in a
that's
box.
interesting.
He put
That's
him in a
interesting.
box, and they basically laid out the blueprint for what Belichick and Flores did in the Super Bowl. And so I think that's something to consider. I don't know if I lean Philadelphia or Lions. I definitely do think the Lions get it, and especially if I heard that if the Lions made the Super Bowl, Hutchinson would be a go potentially, which
Yeah, it's
that's
possible.
frightening. If you make the Super Bowl, they get basically their best player back. So that's just something to think about. But I think with the Lions' injuries and it being so close up until this point, I do think there's a situation where the Lions may. I didn't even actually consider that. That's like a really good point. They might. I mean, even then, the Packers only have 3 losses, and so if they take out the Lions this Thursday, it's
That's
that
what I'm,
it gets.
it is that division is still up for grabs.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
it's interesting because like Philly is pretty much taking the driver's seat there, um, and there's no. I mean, we had talked about on the episode that didn't work out. We talked about the Rams a little bit. I wouldn't want to play them in the playoffs, but their chances of getting in the playoffs are just dwindling and dwindling, and I just it's we don't even want to talk about them at this point. So I
Yeah.
I think I think I think my favorites out of the NFC are probably going to be Philly, which again is crazy to me, but I just
Are we getting a 2022 rematch with Philly and Kansas City?
it's very on the table.
I
Now here's my AFC hot take.
Okay.
I don't think, and I think you're probably going to heavily disagree, but I think we know the top two. But there is a team that deserves to be in the who is real, a real contender conversation, and that is Pittsburgh, 100%.
Okay. I
I think they're somehow still underrated. That team, they have a home field advantage. They've got a heck of a coach. They've got a great defense. And they've got a quarterback that is not turning the ball over. I'm not saying he's like top five right now.
and he's been
He's
there.
not Mahomes, and he's been there. Like, I, I know what, like, Vegas is trying to sell the Steelers hard right now.
Uh-huh.
I can't do it, man. They keep winning. They keep beating. Russ just threw for, like, I know it was the Cincinnati defense, let's be fair,
Mm.
but he just threw for like
This is
300
four.
something and like 400.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
think
I
so.
mean, he just tore up Cincy. Like, I'm just like I'm just saying, like we cannot throw them away
No.
at all. Like if I think if they would, so I think as of now they would be the 3 seed,
Yeah.
and I mean, so they would probably be going on the road, which is, to play the KC or the Buffalo, which, yeah, that doesn't help them 100%. But I just think if they were to sneakily beat one of those teams, like that is scary. I just watch out for Pittsburgh. One of my boys is a big Steelers fan. He's gonna love listening to that, but it's true. It's true. They got a shot. They really do.
We're gonna get the Battle of Pennsylvania in the Super Bowl potentially with
It's possible.
Philly and Pittsburgh. I think we just talked about the Rams and how their chances are probably skunked unless they conduct some Mahomes black magic themselves. But I think they're a team that I'd like to root for because I like Tomlin. I think Mr. Unlimited is he's still got juice, and people wrote him off, but he didn't write back. Stealing those words from Gino, and they got like their offensive line is pretty solid. They got the diva wide receiver in Pickens, and Calvin Austin looks like the second coming of Tyler Lockett. And they have Najee and Warren. They got like a solid run game going, and then I don't even need to talk about the defense because I think you and I both know Steel Curtain
Yeah,
is
it's pretty
back there.
self-explanatory.
I I
TJ
think
Watt, that's it.
yeah, and they get Highsmith back this week. They get another.
Yeah, that's
They
true.
reload.
I think, like, I look at the rest of the AFC. I think the Chargers, I just don't think they have quite the weapons, even that Pittsburgh does. And I think they're very similar teams.
Yeah.
Well coached,
Hmm.
great defenses. And I would take Herbert over Russ, but like the Chargers got no weapons.
Yeah.
But like the Steelers hosting, like I would love to see them play like Buffalo, or I guess we are getting the KC Steelers match on Christmas. That's going to be very interesting
Cinema.
because that's cinema. And I love betting KC, but there's no way I can for that game. No way.
I want to see how the Chargers fare against Kansas City in Kansas City just to see how real this is because they had that game where they almost blew it to Burrow, and then this past week it only took Kirk Cousins 4 picks for them to win by one score. So like I still want to see
Yeah.
maybe a little bit more juice out of them, but hypothetically put like T Higgins as the wide receiver one on that team and you get Dobbins back healthy.
Yeah.
I wouldn't want to see them
They got
beat
a
it.
strong future. It's just not this year. It's
Yeah.
just not this year. They finally got Staley out of there.
Yeah.
Thank the Lord.
Bring him
Um,
back to LA. I'll take him. Ship him back to the other locker room.
I don't think you want him back.
I'll
I
have
don't think you.
as a coordinator, I would take Staley back in a heartbeat. He's got that Vic Fangio kind of defense, I think, where
He does.
it's something complex back going on. But I digress.
But yeah, I think just making sure we hit on everything there. I think the if I were to just name real quick the real and the fake, I think NFC it's pretty much. I'm really tempted to throw at least one of the other NFC North teams in there. I kind of want to throw in Green Bay, but it's tough, and I don't want to write off the Vikings either, man. I think they're legit. I really do. But I think for the most part, like that tier one is clear.
Yeah.
It's Lions and it's Philly, and I think tier one. in the AFC. I'm putting Pittsburgh in that tier one, and I know that's wild, but they just beat everybody. They're just beating teams. It'll be interesting to see how they play on Christmas Day, but tier one's got to be Chiefs, Bills, Steelers in the AFC to me.
I can get behind that, and maybe this is a hot take, but I think you can make the argument that the Steelers are more well-rounded than the Bills. I don't
I
I don't know
They
how.
both are concerning on the weapon side. I would love the Steelers to like have a really solidified wide receiver too. If Mike Williams somehow like
Turns back the clock.
resurges, then like yeah, the Steelers are probably my favorites to win the bowl.
Yeah.
But I don't know. They just I, and when you have a guy like Josh Allen, who I've been critical of, but when he's not turning the ball over like this year,
Demon.
he's phenomenal. Yeah.
Demon.
Yeah. So I hesitate there a little bit, but on the well-rounded side, yeah, I mean, it's a fair argument. You can make the argument.
Hmm. Don't let the Rams sneak in. That's all I'm gonna say.
Hey,
Detroit,
you never know.
don't let them sneak in.
Oh, Detroit would be shook if they had to play LA again.
I